Also, I'd like to thank you for allowing me into your homes for this 22nd episode of Season 4 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. And I did play a bit more of intro music than I normally do, and I will discuss the theme music here in a second. Today's show is going to probably be a bit all over the map. I have been planning to have a guest for several weeks now, and I want to go ahead and cover some of that information that I would have had on with the guest and touch upon that a little bit, and then kind of touch around on a few other things as well. Unfortunately, I didn't find out until this afternoon that I would not be able to have the guest on, and so kind of forced me to throw some stuff together. But well, actually, before I go much further with that, let me mention that this upcoming next Wednesday, which is the 20th of April, we'll be having the philosophical and metaphysical meeting that we here at Esoteric Science Roundtable and the fine folks over at Therefore I Am, Jeff Contreras and crew, host each and every third Wednesday of the month. And for April, that is falling on the 20th. We always start at around 8 p.m. upstairs at Opal Divines and leave whenever folks are good and ready to leave. This is very free, very casual, very relaxed, and we encourage anyone that's interested in showing up to chat with us about our respective shows, or if they have something that they'd like to bring to our attention, or if they just want to come hang out, whatever the case may be. We encourage anyone that is interested to come on down and check that out. I do want to mention, relating to our respective shows, that there will be some changes. Jeff Contreras kindly refers to this show as his sister show, or this sister show to Therefore I Am. We have a lot of similar content that we, share between the two shows, as far as the metaphysical and the political in some respects as well. And so some that have been watching the shows, and in particular that watched Therefore I Am this past Tuesday, may be aware of the fact that Jeff Contreras will not be finishing up his hosting duties for the remainder of this season series. And so that's unfortunate on the one hand, but I myself have only been doing this show about 3.5 years. So I haven't been doing this show over 7 years like Jeff has, and obviously the burnout factor can kick in. I mean, it seems like, we're just sitting in front of the camera for an hour once a week, what's the big deal? But there is some preparation that goes into the shows, and, there is a bit of a commitment. There's a little bit of a financial commitment to qualify to take the classes and get your producer's license current and that sort of thing, and pay, you have to pay for the live slots and what have you. So, again, there are some fees associated, but to me, I think it's a great honor to be able to have this opportunity to sit here and be able to exchange ideas and have a full hour prime time just to be able to speak my mind, or have guests on, or take your calls, or what have you. And so, again, I feel quite fortunate that that is indeed the case. And so as far as Jeff's upcoming shows are concerned, he will continue to have his show, and he will have a fill-in host for him. And I don't know that I'm letting the cat out of the bag necessarily. I don't suppose I am, but my understanding is that Christy Corse, who produces the show currently, will jump from behind the scenes to jump in front of the camera. And she recently appeared on the Esoteric Forum that was featured on both Therefore I Am and this show. And so some folks may be familiar with her. I think she's going to do a wonderful job, and I'm looking forward to assisting them if I'm able, and making sure that they continue to put up the same quality of program that they have been putting out all this time. And I don't think they're going to miss a step, really. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. There will be some changes along those lines, and so that's certainly going to affect things to a certain degree. But again, the quality of the shows upcoming for Therefore I Am, I don't think are going to miss a beat, and I really look forward to seeing how this is all going to work itself out. And I think you're going to find that there'll be some guest hosts from time to time as well. And certainly I'm open to that sort of thing. It's I enjoy it, quite frankly, and eager to help out if I'm able to. I do want to give some information about some of the upcoming shows that are going to be featured on this show and some other shows that that we have some things in common with. And so, in particular, we're going to have a couple of shows on esoteric symbolism, or occult symbolism in pop culture. Certainly, we can consider occult symbolism in music, film, television. We're gonna get pretty in depth in that, and so we were going to do a two-parter, and I think ultimately we will do more parts. But the way we're going to end up having to work this out as far as the scheduling goes is next week we won't be having a show here for Esoteric Science Roundtable. There will be a tape show, and so we won't be live. But at 10 p.m. on Channel 16 next Thursday, which is the 21st, there will be a show on The Beautiful Losers featuring myself, the host David Castillo, obviously, and Jeff Contreras, and we are going to, again, as I said, flesh out this concept of occult or esoteric symbolism in pop culture. And so, again, no live show for us, although I will be featured on the live Beautiful Losers episode next week. Then the following week, which is the 28th, there are classes in the mini studio, and so that would mean that myself and David Castillo, the Beautiful Losers, will not be having live shows on the 28th. So that point being, for me, I won't be here for 2 weeks on this show. Then after the classes, then we'll be back to regular show schedules. And so we're going to have to wait and see how we're able to squeeze in the part 2 of looking into esoteric symbolism in pop culture. Because there's just a wealth of information. There's so much to cover that, we could easily extend that past a 2-parter, but we're going to have to wait and see how our schedules allow. And so we definitely will continue on that more so. Let's see, I do want to bring up some information about the woman that was going to be on my show, and I do want to chat about her organization a bit and give it a little bit of time on the show since she was not able to be here. And unfortunately, just simply due to scheduling conflicts and illness, I definitely know the will is there on both parties. The will on our end to do the show, and the will on the end of our guest to do the show is there. It's just a matter of getting everything lined up schedule-wise and what have you. And so I'm going to go to a quick close-up. This may not be so clear, but this TAMR, Texans for the Advancement of Medical Research, and this is the logo for the group. And I do want to touch a bit on some of the information in here and give a bit of background on what their intention is. Okay, so the Texans for Advancement of Medical Research. Basically, according to my understanding, the main idea is to make somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT, available. This is related to stem cell research. And that is certainly a controversial issue right now. And it is right now in the Texas legislature. There's a lot of haggling and wrangling going on as we speak, really, to try to define how this legislation is going to pan out. You've got the right to life folks that look at this in any aspect of this as completely against God and as consider this perhaps human cloning and things of that nature. And so there is a particular state bill, a House Bill 864, and it is relating to the regulation of the cloning of human beings. And let me just make one little brief read here. While the title of this bill sounds noble and appropriate, as no reputable person or group approves of the cloning of human beings, it is inflammatory and misleading. The bill appears to permit research and therapy for humans. However, it actually makes both a crime, in fact, a felony. And so I want to give some examples of, if this legislation passes, what it might allow to take place. Here are the bullet points that they have in here. A teenager with multiple sclerosis who received treatment and was cured in the state of Texas using SCNT therapy would be guilty of a felony and subject to civil penalties not less than $500,000. Anyone knowingly involved in the process, parents, physicians, nurses, scientists, etc., would be guilty of a felony. Here's another example. A grandmother with Parkinson's who sent her own skin cells to another state or country to be used for SCNT therapy would be participating in an attempt to perform human cloning and would be guilty of a felony. A mother who sent her unfertilized egg to England to help her child grow stem cells would be guilty of a felony. Let's see, a college student from Texas with diabetes who was cured in California with insulin-producing cells created through SCNT would be guilty of a felony upon returning home to Texas. So again, a lot of this would prevent even the most simple and the most ethical, I suppose, research into these areas. and even, you know, in the instance of using your own stem cells to provide for your own treatment, if this was, you know, if this were to go past the state lines, that this would bring in this felony penalty and all this other additional stuff. And so this definitely, my understanding is that this research, or this group, is very, very much against the cloning research, in which, for instance, one would be able to bring a fetus to term, and as long as basically for all intents and purposes, the baby did not have a nervous system, then it could be picked apart, used, dissected, what have you, for the stem cell research. And this is very far removed from what this woman's institution is trying to get interest in. And she also has written this legislation that is running counter to this House Bill 864. And so I would encourage anyone that wants to find out more about this organization and to consider this somewhat, if they have an opportunity to go to the web, for instance, to the TAMR, or Texans for Advancement of Medical Research. I'll show the logo again once more. And again, Texans for the Advancement of Medical Research. And again, they are advocates for life. In this culture of death, I think that's a welcome thing. And so, you know, the stem cell research and the related studies are going to continue to go on. It's just a matter of, you know, how is it ethically going to be considered? You know, how is it morally going to be considered? And you just, you know, as far as research and all that, how is it going to ultimately find its way into the mainstream? And so we'll have to wait and see about that. And so again, I am confident that in the near future we will be able to have Becky McCleary on and to discuss this in much greater detail and with folks that have a much more understanding of not just the legislation, but the processes, the scientific process involved, and a lot more aspects of this to, again, bring some light to this subject. Today's show topic is open eyes, and again, this is kind of what I consider one of my thrown together quickly shows, unfortunately. As in last week, I found out about 2 hours before the show that my guest would not be appearing, and so I had to pull something out of my ear, which luckily I was able to do. And today, again, same situation. So hence the long intro and musical intro, and the fact that I am going to be all over the map for the most part, trying to just kind of put a few of these ideas together. Let's see. Okay, so I did cover that. Okay, I do want to mention also the opening music that I used. That is from a band called, well, I'll refer to them as Revco. How does that sound? There's some local folks that are involved in that. Some may know the name Al Jorgensen Ministry, but nonetheless, or Paul Barker. But this Revco project, some may have recognized the narrator for that particular intro music was Timothy Leary, Dr. Timothy Leary. And there's also some contention that he definitely was involved with you know, drugs and experimentation into psychedelics, and there's pretty good evidence that he was somehow affiliated with governmental delvings into the psychedelic movement and getting this drug culture started and things of that nature. But later in his life, before he passed away, I think he really started to have a change of opinion, if he was really firmly involved in the CIA stuff or any of that kind of stuff. Again, I don't know to what degree, but I feel that what he was starting to, the philosophy that he was starting to devise towards the end of his life is very valid, and it takes in aspects of metaphysical, certainly, when it talks about, in the song lyrics, or the narration, who controls your eyeballs controls your mind, and that is very, very true. And certainly those folks that are out there watching the television, you know, your eyes are being, you know, focused in on the image and what have you. And so, again, there's a lot of relevance to that. There's a lot of validity to that. He who controls your eyeballs does control your mind, and so just staring blankly into the television screen for hours on end is certainly not something that I would recommend. Certainly, I think there are some good television programs on Access Television and a handful of other things you find from time to time. So I don't encourage a whole ton of television viewing, but that's certainly one medium of control you view it and you are sucked in by the images, and it ultimately does control your mind at some level. And so those ideas, I think, are quite relevant. The eyes are very much the window to the soul, and the eyes allow us to take in our environment and then allow the mind to function in conjunction with whatever we're able to envision or visualize. And so, again, the idea of controlling our vision and therefore controlling our minds is very appropriate. And I don't know that this is something that Timothy Leary discerned or discovered if he was working for some kind of government project, or if this is just something that he gleaned over years of using various drugs or what have you. I'm not sure, but I do feel that the intro music has some good insights and allows somebody to kind of consider some things. It is kind of coincidental as well on another level that I went to one of the record conventions that they have here in Austin. Not the most recent one, but one that was I guess last September or October, and I picked up the single that I played for the intro music, and I planned to record it to a disc and bring it down here as I do usually. And I thought it was kind of coincidental that a couple of months after I picked up the single, before I really implemented it for intro music, that on the Jack Blood radio program he's been using the main version. There is a main version to that song, whereas that's the alternative take or the single remix, what have you. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that those correlations are going on. That happens to me pretty periodically, and it's just it's a source of reassurance, and amusement at the same time. And so I thought that was kind of coincidental. So I went to go ahead and finally use that intro music and discuss it somewhat. And I thought today's situation was good for that. Okay. Another thing I want to get into is related to the Mayan calendar, and first I want to chat about the Mayan calendar. At the intro to our show, as well as the intro to Therefore I Am, you'll notice there might be something like Red Magnetic Dragon, for instance, which is today's Mayan day, and there's a combination of 20 glyphs and 13 tones that we go through in order to determine, what day, which symbols fall on what particular day of the Gregorian. And so we here at Esoteric Science Roundtable and other shows as well, especially Therefore I Am, really encourage people to consider alternative means of an alternative calendar, one that's based on our body, one that's based on, for instance, we have 20 digits between the fingers and the toes, and we have 13 main connecting joints in our body. We basically, the calendar is us, and we are the calendar in essence. And so for us to be able to use this calendar, it's much more in harmony with us. And so for us to use this calendar, we can get more in sync with just our natural rhythms and with the rhythms of the universe, the planet, our fellow humans, all livingness. We can come into a closer rapport by virtue of using this calendar. And I do want to show a picture representing what's known as the Sulcan, which is the main aspect of the calendar. It doesn't represent the entire 364 day year plus what's called the day at a time. So there is no leap year or anything like that with the Mayan calendar. There's 364 days, which is nice and even. It gives you 13 months of 28 days as far as the way that pans out. And so with the Sulcan, we do have a little chart to follow that gives us an idea as to what's going on. And today is somewhat relevant in the respect that we're getting back to the beginning of the Sulcan. So I'll go ahead and show that quickly and discuss that for a second. Okay, so for instance, if we look here to this day, which was yesterday, that was the very end point of the Sulcan. And so by virtue of that, we go and we flip over, we start over again, and we find ourselves over here. And this is today's day. And as you can see, it's a green day, as was yesterday's day. It was a green day, or so-called portal day as well. And yesterday was the 13 tone. So after the 13, we start back over to the 1, and then we go down and we count. And we just go down, and then we this is how we translate the Gregorian to the Mayan. And so today being here, Red Magnetic Dragon, again a portal day, this is the initiation day, if you will, of the Tzolk'in for the remainder of this calendar year for the Mayan, which ends on July 25th, the day at a time, which is a day that's not factored in, and then the following day will be the New Year day. And so following it along here somewhere, actually right here, boom, this day, I've got my finger on here, it's another portal day, Yellow Cosmic Seed Day. That will be the first day of our next year. And so this day would be the so-called day at a time. Am I looking at that right? No, it's over here. I'm sorry. This is over here, right? Rather, here it would be the day at a time, and here actually the 13-tone, not a portal day rather, but just a 13-tone day would be the first day of our next Mayan year, and that will take on the years. That will signify the whole year, as in the instance of this calendar. Let me show the cover real quick. This is from a couple of years ago that we had this as our Mayan year, the white spectral wizard year. And you can see the 11 tone for spectral, the two bars representing 5 plus 5 plus 1 is 11. And this is the glyph for the white wizard. So white spectral wizard. And we've passed through that. We are currently in a 12-tone year, which is the blue storm. We're in the blue crystal storm year, the 12-tone. And then the next year again will be the 13-tone, the yellow cosmic seed. And so by virtue of that, we have a lot to look forward to. And I will be doing more shows on the Mayan calendar, having more guests appearing in the future. And we'll get into a lot more of the particulars and how this calendar harmonizes with our body and with our very livingness. And all things in creation can relate and become in tune with this calendar. And so again, more will be discussed in the future on that. It looks as if I actually do have some calls, so I'm going to go ahead and grab calls and see how that goes. Hello, caller, you're on the air. I'm having trouble hearing you, brother. What's that again? Oh, move on. Thank you, sir. Hello, caller, you're on the air. All right, then. Appreciate those comments. We are going to try to take some calls in addition. If you guys want to call, the number here, 477-2288. And if we can get some respectable calls, actually, we'll take the calls. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, let me see where I want to get back to again with this. I guess with the idea of open eyes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be all over the map, so I'm going to be a little bit self-indulgent. And what I want to do in this respect, real quick, I want to read something. Actually, maybe we can just get a close-up of it. Well. I'll just read it. This is something that I wrote a long, long times ago, and I had it published as well. And it's a poem that kind of relates to the topic at hand. And so I'm going to go ahead and throw this out. Again, excuse the diversity of the show today. Let me go ahead and perpetrate this quickly. I titled this Reflection. I probably wrote this when I was like 19 or something, so a couple of years ago. Let me go ahead and begin, please. Open eyes and ears to capture all the beauty of this mystery that surrounds me, flows into my heart of hearts, which eagerly embraces it. Stirred with such elation, flutter in my chest is racing as my senses follow each fine line that my memory is tracing. It soon becomes a part of me, safely kept where I can't lose it. Some days I may reflect on it, the vision or the sound that stole away into the place where these miracles are found. And so, again, I borrowed from my own poem, I guess, for the title of the show today, Open Eyes. And I think that does tie into the idea of light and enlightenment and things of that nature. And so, again, I want to continue to follow up on these themes for the remainder of the show and just, again, kind of touch base on a few odds and ends topics. Hello, caller, you on the air?
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I really like the background, the waves. It's really soothing to my soul, if you know what I'm saying.
All right.
I had a couple questions for you. My first question is, I'm really interested in your sun gazing or something like that, where you look at the sun.
Right.
All right. Are you sure that if you look at the sun for a certain amount of time, you can go without food and water?
I am quite confident that that is the case. There are
like,
people...
do you do that? Like, do you partake in that?
I'm making the transition. I have not started getting up at the proper time in the morning. I don't get up that early. I'm going to tell you straight up. It's hard for me to get up that early.
Yeah. Well, I do want to tell you before I leave you, just because some callers call in and talk crap, you shouldn't, not take calls, because that's not fair to everybody else. I wish the immature callers wouldn't call in, you know?
Well, it is a live television, and it gives everybody an opportunity, and so... it's kind of give and take. I mean, I understand your sentiment, and I do appreciate that. And I know I wouldn't be sitting up here week after week if I didn't think there were people viewing and getting something out of this. I mean, I do get feedback from people pretty periodically.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, a lot of times I'm just walking down the street.
I did notice that you got a haircut, man.
Right on. How about that?
Did you do that because of your callers or because for yourself?
No, actually, in all honesty, my hair was quite fried.
You gonna let it grow out like that again?
Who knows? I'm really indifferent.
Cockload Corey.
All right, thank you, sir. Yeah. So at any rate, I don't know. It's like very immaterial to me. Who cares? I almost wish this was a radio show a lot of times, so that it would be a non-issue. But at any rate, hello, caller.
You are a douchebag.
Okay. And thank you for viewing, sir. Thanks for watching the douchebag program. Hello, caller on the air.
Yes. Am I on?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
You were talking about synchronicity earlier.
More than likely, yes.
And I believe that nature is in sympathy with itself.
Oh, without question. Absolutely. Yes.
And I was once asked on a humanities exam what magic was. And I said that magic was the manifestation of coincidence, which results from the fact that all things in the universe coincide.
That's a very good definition.
Well, thank you. I got an A.
That's a wonderful definition. Yeah, the idea of synchronicity in a metaphysical context, I believe, is credited to Carl Jung. They came up with the term synchronicity to cover the concept that there really are no pure coincidences. The word coincidence, there is really no such thing as a coincidence. All things are in sympathetic rapport or a magnetic rapport, as you wisely surmise. And this allows, once we're aware of that relation, of that rhythm, to get in line with the rhythm and to go with the flow of the universe, so to speak, as opposed to continually butting our heads against the wall and going against the grain. And I'm not saying we shouldn't go against the grain in some respects, but there are times to go against the grain, and there are times when you can, with the mentality of going against the grain, go with the flow to go against the grain. I know that sounds like a paradox, but there are a lot of ways in which we can understand this rhythm. And that's why I mentioned this calendar a second ago, the Mayan calendar, which ends in the year 2012, and that has its own rhythmic syncing up and synchronicities and situations that it will allow for as well. And so, yes, definitely very astute observation. Is there anything else you care to add along those lines?
Well, I was just wondering if you go to the Mayan meetings at UT every spring.
Do you know who that is? Who's that
related
with?
Linda Sheely, I think, put it on years ago. She's now deceased.
Oh, okay. Because my friend that put this calendar together, Dr. Yarli Livermon, was working as a researcher at the University of Texas. He moved away, but he will be back for our celebration, which we had a big celebration at Peace Park last year on the so-called Day Out of Time, July 25th. And we will again, I'm pretty sure it will be at Peace Park again, that we'll have an all-day event.
On the 25th, well, I'll have to go. My mother goes to those meetings every year and has for the last 15 years, so I know they've been doing it a long time.
Okay, and it's what time of year again do they have?
It's in March.
It's in March.
Every March
obviously
at UT.
already missed. I wish I knew more about that. It's amazing to me, again, synchronicities, that they're, and even when we were doing our Mayan, I'll tell you a quick thing about the Mayan Peace Park event last year. Some guy that was studying the Mayan stuff, that was very familiar with it, was teaching some kind of a dance class, and he lived in the area adjacent to Peace Park, and he had forgotten something, and he drove back home to grab it. He went another way. He went by the Peace Park area where we were doing our event, and he saw the Mayan glyphs and all the stuff that we had out there, and he tripped out, and he went onto his dance class, and he actually invited some of his students to come back to Peace Park after the class was over, and they did indeed come back and contribute to our celebration. And so, again, synchronicity, coincidence, whatever term you choose to use, there's a lot of that going on. And I really, really encourage people to trust your intuition first and foremost, and to consider these synchronicities. If you are open to them, if you're allowing yourself to be considering of these things, you'll find these synchronicities cropping up in your life. When you least expect these things, things will dovetail into one another. Things will work in a most amazing fashion.
Well, I've been having a lot of deja vus lately. Does that mean that everything is working as it should?
I tend to think so. I tend to think when you have these remembrances or these triggers kick in, that something seems familiar to you, that you are in sync again with that rhythm that we were discussing that allows you to tap into those nodes or those points of remembrance or triggers or recognitions. But a lot of people are finding triggers, and that's a great word that I like to use often as well. A trigger is something that, kicks in and can be something that allows you to have an expansion of consciousness or just some understanding, some level of awareness that you didn't have before. Some trigger kicks in to enable you to consider things that you hadn't considered before, perhaps. And I feel that this is certainly a symptom of what's going on in this area, because we have the type of people that are, into these kind of subjects to a certain degree. But I think it's larger. It's more symptomatic towards other cities in the country and globally as well, that a lot of people are coming into this remembrance or these triggers are enacting themselves in order for them to come back to some understanding of who we are. That's another important thing too, remembering. We have to remember at some point who we are. Are we this flesh and blood vehicle, or are we the soul that occupies and inhabits the physical vehicle? That's the key thing too. If we can look at ourselves as the soul, consider ourselves, as the light of the soul, as opposed to this dense physical vehicle, coming from that perspective, and we consider other souls as our own soul, that we are, we have in us is comprised one aspect of a larger soul. That soul is one thing. It's just divided or differentiated among many people.
We're individualized expressions of the universe.
Yes, absolutely. And so as we start to recover that information more so and synchronize with that knowledge more so, you're going to see a lot of things, I think, changing in a real rapid fashion globally that will allow for the nature of the soul to be more predominant and make itself more manifest and to be considered scientifically, ultimately, that the nature of the soul will be scientifically proven, and that will really allow for a vast incremental or exponential, I should say, sort of change that will be, it'll just repeat itself and replicate quite quickly. And so I think we have that to look forward to.
Well, thank you for doing your work.
Hey, thank you for doing your work. Wonderful.
Many blessings.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Have a nice evening. Yeah, so that's, again, wonderful definition of magic. I think that's very most appropriate, and I'm going to try to remember that. Let me see if I get another call here. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hey, Corey, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm actually a first-time viewer of your show.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you talking about energy and stuff. I actually tuned in about 20 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
What's all this energy and stuff about? I know I'm talking pretty broad, but I haven't really. You seem to just go off on like a bunch of. I heard someone talk about sun gazing and like not having to eat, and then I heard like all sorts of stuff about energy. So just
Yeah, if
break
you're
it down
viewing
for
this
me.
show for the first time, I had a guest on, and so I'm having to just kind of pull something out of my ear at the last minute, and so I'm just recouping some ideas from some previous shows, and just trying to tie some loose ends together. But just in general, as far as energy is concerned, the show itself is called Esoteric Science Roundtable, and esoteric means inner or within, and we have an inner quality of energy in us, the soul nature. We also have what's known as the etheric body, which is the energy body that's underlying our physical vehicle that gives us.
See, this is what I'm talking about, man. You just like go off, and no one really gives a fuck what you have to say.
I see. Well, you've been viewing for the past 20 minutes, and you had a comment remotely related to what I was discussing. So as to say that you don't give a frog, I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I would say that at the soul level, your soul is very, very interested in this type of information and these synchronicities and these rhythms and this larger working out. The soul is very hungry for this. Although we don't allow our souls in many instances to partake of the feast. We shut off the soul by our own ignorance, by our unwillingness to consider these things in a more introspective way, to internalize these ideas, to meditate on these ideas, to take these ideas into our prayer, into our innermost thinking, and to allow these thoughts to permeate and to become more than just simple, silly concepts, we can allow these ideas to literally change us, to change us individually and change society. All change in society is based on ideas and ideals. And as ideas permeate the consciousness of mankind, so does mankind change. And so this is our task right now. Mind is so prominent and so potent and also so pliable in this day and age that this is the most important time for us to control our thoughts and have some impositions on ourselves so that we keep ourselves in check, we keep ourselves in some sort of an alignment. This is really a key crucial time in our humanity for us to consider these concepts. Not everyone is going to reach out and take advantage of these opportunities and try to make something out of it. Some aren't even aware of it at all. So again, depending. But at the soul level, this is something that is relevant, and it will be more so, increasingly so, as time progresses. So let me go ahead and grab another call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Corey. I've actually been watching the show for about 2 minutes, and what I got out of this is that I think you're a douchebag.
Okay, appreciate that. Well, that was a very astute comment there. Appreciate that sentiment. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
See, no one really wants to listen to you because you just ramble on about
okay. Okay, thanks. Well, you're sitting there viewing the show, so I just don't fathom that. It makes no sense to me that, it is, again, it's a live call-in show. If you want to view and you want to say something negative and you want to just criticize the show, you're certainly welcome to. But brother, the joke is on you. You're sitting there calling, you're sitting there taking the time and the energy. We're working with energy here. You're using your energy to speak your voice and to, say these things. So it's all back on you guys, and we're all one. We're all one thing. So if you want to dog me, you're really dogging yourself. That's the ultimate aspect of it as well. So, I'm not discouraged by this sort of thing. And I think sometimes people just don't know what they want to ask. So I don't know. Who knows? Hello, caller, you're on the air. All right. Line 2, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Corey?
Good, yourself?
Hey, we think you rock, man.
Cool. You got any questions or comments?
Yeah. First, I have a comment for the Neanderthals that keep calling.
Mm-hmm.
They need to definitely raise their awareness because they really make themselves look like idiots.
Mm-hmm.
And then, second of all, I want to get your opinion on string theory and vibration. And then also want to say hi to my friend Melissa.
Hey, Melissa, how the heck are you?
Okay, that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Okay, appreciate your call. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that's a good question. String theory, and some of the more, the more current concepts in physics. As far as there being little strings that underlie all things, when it comes to science and when it comes to experimentation, there's always, science is going to view something. They're going to view a certain set of something in a controlled environment, and they're going to try to have a recurrable set of circumstances, something that they can reliably repeat time and time again so that they can develop a law based on it. And they can say, in this instance, this will happen. In this instance, this will happen. And so they can reliably fall back on that, and they can say, this is a law. So laws of gravity, things, this, that, and the other. I really feel that in many instances, this view, unless you come up with a full-on unified field theory, that these partial views or these different hypotheses are going to be a partial picture of a larger reality. And one aspect of that is that ultimately, with our human minds, even though they are quite potent and they're pretty amazing, we can only tap into the greater consciousness to a certain degree. And so we're only going to be able to bring into our consciousness at a certain level what's going on, any level of awareness. And so we're never going to really be able to take in and encompass, at this level anyway, the totality of what's going on. So it's with string theory, ultimately I feel that they're seeing a symptomatic and recurable symptom that they feel is part of this larger whole, but I think it's a lesser aspect of a greater condition. So it's just a lesser effect of a greater cause that, again, might be recurable and repeatable and can be, again, some ideas can be based on it the way that science tends to work. But ultimately, this will have to be expanded out past these individual strings to, again, a unified field theory. I would say even as far as matter is concerned, we have the periodic table of the elements. And that increases from time to time depending as we find things with more or less atoms, what have you. Or depending on the structure, the electron, neutron, proton structure, however that is, that would break down into different elements. I think ultimately there is one element, and it's differentiated into its different aspects, but there is only one unified matter in my estimation. Underlying that matter is one unifying energy. And that again is where this whole synchronicity kind of concept comes together. We tap in and tie in these ideas together. So the string, I think, is a lesser effect of a greater cause. And once we see that vibration and its full blossoming, then we'll really understand how the universe breathes. It's more like, the universe is much more like the breath. I think that analogy is more adequate. That is more like the in-breathing and out-breathing. The out-breathing would be the manifestation. The in-breathing would be before the Big Bang. So Big Bang is the beginning of the breath. After the fact, the collapse would be the intaking of the breath. In a great being that we have our lesser lives included within, and that's one way to consider it. So thank you for your comments. I do appreciate that, and I am quite confident that the viewership is not always reflected by the calls, and so that's why, again, I continue to do the show, because if that wasn't the case, I don't know. Hello, caller. Hello, caller. Okay. Line 2, you're on the air.
Hi.
How's it going?
Fine. I just want to say I enjoy your show a lot.
Thanks.
And since the show seems to be about anything today,
Yes.
I've been watching it for a while and noticed that y'all talk an awful lot about the Golden Dawn and people like Aleister Crowley. But I never really see y'all talk about somebody like Dion Fortune. Are you familiar with her?
I love Dion Fortune.
Yeah, I love her work too. And I was just wondering what you thought about her work in general, since this show seems to be about you talking about whatever.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll let you hold on for a second as well before I let you go.
All right.
Dion Fortune, I think, is great, and she also has her own the Society of the Inner Light. You might
Yeah, the Inner Light.
Right, exactly. And there were a lot of these women around the turn of last century that were very prominent in starting up these different organizations and these different societies. In all honesty, the Therefore I Am crowd, and my producer, for that matter, too, I'll throw him in with the group, too, are more partial to the Hermetic tradition, the Western esoteric tradition, whereas myself, I'm a bit more partial to the Eastern tinged aspects of it. But ultimately, it's all one esoteric science. And so there are a lot of different writers or, even the poet Yeats, W.B. Yeats.
Oh, yeah, and the Golden Dawn.
Right, the Golden Dawn.
I was wondering what you thought about her fiction.
And I have not read it. I know she has several fiction novels, and I have access to them via my producer and other people that have them in their book collections. I just have not delved into them yet. But which one in particular, like Moonchild or something like that?
Actually, Moon Magic. No, Moonchild is by Aleister Crowley.
That's right. Yeah, I'm getting confused.
Moon Magic is actually my favorite. That was published posthumously after she died.
Okay.
It was actually considered to give away too many of the esoteric secrets of the Society of the Inner Light, and they were against them.
And I think it is one important point to make. My understanding is that Dion Fortune initiated the Society of the Inner Light to be a Christian organization.
Yeah, she has this theory of the rays or something. You work within since Western rays, Western tradition seems to be tinged with Christianity. She tended to equate that with Christianity, so it's the Western kind of ray. I'd recommend, her books. Actually, Moon Magic is the sequel to a book called The Sea Priestess, where she introduces...
My producer has that book as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Sea Priestess isn't as good, but if you get a chance, her fiction is actually... She's actually quite better a fiction writer than Aleister Crowley. But I'll let you go.
Hey, thanks very much. Appreciate your sentiments there. Also, what was I going to say about Dion Fortune? The books I'm familiar with are her books on esoteric orders and their work. I think she has a couple of books in that series that I definitely did read. And I believe Gareth Knight is one of her pupils, if I'm not mistaken. And I have a couple of books by Gareth Knight, and I feel that they are quite good as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of relevant information along those lines. Thank you very much. I know there are a lot of people in the city that are interested in those topics, and they're looking into this information. One thing that is leading people into esoteric information is they see that there are secret societies, or there's a lot of occult symbolism that's borrowed or used and implemented by, like, NASA, for instance, with our governmental seals, in architecture. And so it's easy for people to look and see esoteric symbols and say, oh, esoteric symbol bad. There's some negative or malignant intention behind that. But the symbol, much like the Force in Star Wars, is just that. It's a symbol. We can apply the intent to it. Now, certainly with things like the inverted pentagram, you know, that symbol has been impregnated with a lot of negativity. And that's what happens. A symbol has energy. It has the energy that we give it by considering it, by thinking about it. And it also has, in some cases, its own inherent archetypal energy. So there's a two-way street there. Shapes and symbols can have their own inherent power, and then we give them additional power by contemplating on them, meditating on these symbols, and giving, again, invigorating them and giving them more energy. And so that's something to consider. Hello, caller, on the air.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Corey, your hair looks good.
Oh, thanks.
I have a vague question. Is there some esoteric knowledge regarding who founded Egyptian society and culture and who founded Mesoamerican culture and esoteric culture?
Well, it's really...
Didn't the Dark Ones come over, basically?
Sorry, say again?
And Dark Ones came over to this side of the world from Egypt-ish,
I mean, if you're going to ask,
established.
if you're going to ask me, see, I would take that even further back to say that there was at one point in time an Atlantean continent in which magic and the differentiation between, let's say, the Black Lodge and the White Lodge really cropped up.
Right.
And then from that point, after the subsiding of Atlantis, the remnants of the leftover people that survived had to go off into their, survive and go to other places. And so then that tradition was carried with these particular people. And there were those that left us, according to tradition, we're talking, thousands and thousands of years ago, way before anything was written. And so as to how we decipher these legends and myths and religious symbolism and stuff like that, it's going to vary, I think, from person to person. As far as the timeline, certainly, it's very vast. And some people, like Jeff Contreras, the person that co-hosts our meetings and what have you, and does the show Therefore I Am, he looks at Egypt as the cradle of civilization. And whereas I would, look back to Atlantis and before then, but even after Atlantis, the first great culture, allegedly, that sprang up was the Indian culture, the ancient culture of India. And there's even an esoteric saying, look to the east, whence all light comes. Certainly the sun rises in the east, and so that's a pretty obvious reference in one respect, the sun rises in the east. But the eastern lands is where the enlightened information really originated, and the bulk of it stays somewhat latent, and in Central America as well, you've got still things yet to be discovered that are going to give us more insights into ancient peoples. So again, depending on who you talk to, you're going to find a little bit of a different perspective. And again, when you get into these dark night of time kind of considerations that, thousands and thousands of years ago, far before the written word and even before hieroglyphics, it's really difficult to say for certain. And so the people that I look towards for some of my insight, in addition to what I'm able to decipher through writings and stuff like that, is the people that have the clairvoyant ability to tap back into these earlier times. And when I can find that some of what they say ties into what I'm able to find from other sources, I start to build my philosophy based on these kind of insights and this input. And so it's difficult to say. So is there anything else you care to add to that?
No, it's just something I've been curious about.
Yeah, see, and I would, I'm going to be the person that says, well, after Atlantis, the Indian culture was the first great culture. But if you speak to other people, they're going to say, no, the Egyptian culture far precedes anything in India. So,
right.
Kind of open to some interpretation when we're looking back that far into the past.
I see. Well, thanks.
Hey, thank you very much. Take care. Thanks for viewing. Let's see, let me go ahead and grab another call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Corey?
Yes?
Hi, Sally calling.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I wanted to comment. I thought it was, I really liked the way you handled the call earlier when someone was saying some derogatory comments, and you remarked about how their soul was interested in listening to the show. I thought that was really perceptive and very cool. And I wanted also, if you would have a few words to say about something earlier about the soul is separate from the body, and trying to think about, or I thought that's what you were saying, with kind of the dense matter body, and thinking of ourselves more as the soul. And kind of one of the concerns that comes up for me when I listen to that is that, and this feeds into some of the things that was going on the show on the Divine Feminine.
Yes.
Is that the body frequently also gets aligned with the feminine. And when we disregard it, we lose a tremendous amount of really valuable information. And actually, I mean, I would consider it more as an aspect of the soul, just a very dense aspect.
You know, you hermeticists helped me to remind me of that, because again, with the Eastern tinge, you know, they tend to think of the physical body as such a non-factor. It's just like not even factored in so much. So yes, you guys have definitely helped me to consider that. But please continue. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I think there is some East and West division there. So I think that's been one of the problems in Western culture, was that the complete divorce. The body has to be, you know, kind of punished. There's a period attitude towards it.
Right.
And there's a rejection of sexuality and a rejection of sensuality.
Right, that's true.
And I feel like that's part of some of the things that come through with the Western esoteric tradition as it's come forward in the last century. And I think also, though, it's present in the East. There's still a regard, like with Tantra and some of the other things, there's that energy for bringing the body back in. I mean, the yogis may have mastery over the body, but they don't degrade it. Right. I don't know if you can speak to that any.
Absolutely. Hey, that's a wonderful thread that you've handed me there, and I really, really, really appreciate that big time. Thanks, Sally, big time. Very cool. Yeah, I definitely, and also I'm a big proponent of Wilhelm Reich and the orgone energy, so-called, and that if we don't allow ourselves to have that sensuality and allow for the energy to flow through the body in that respect, then it's going to be difficult for us. It's going to hinder us. And I ultimately believe that a lot of what crops up in prostate cancer and the congenital heart problems that people have are related to this not having this energy flowing properly through the physical vehicle. And if you do, as we're discussing, shut off all ideas of the physical as being a part of yourself, then yes, you may be subject to that. Now, certainly there are those Indian gentlemen, and mostly men, that do, you know, let their body waste away by attrition, and they'll basically like hold their hand up in the air until it literally withers away, and or they'll bury themselves up to their neck because they think of the physical body as such a non-factor. Now, I'm certainly not to that extreme by any stretch, and I think we should embrace the physical body. But I also think that we should work to bring the nature of the soul into the physical body, have that aligned personality, and have the soul being the dominating, you know, force or outlook for the physical vessel, for the personality. So our physical, emotional, and mental body are directed and steered by the intent of the soul, which is a universal intent, which, you know, is all-inclusive. And that's the key thing. That's the real emphasis I like to make, is between the physical body and emphasizing the physical and emphasizing the soul. Ultimately, I think there needs to be a merging where the soul takes over the physical to a certain degree, or not to a certain degree, to a large degree, and makes that possible. So thanks very much for that. Appreciate that, Sally. I'm not going to have a chance to get to the last couple of callers, it looks like. I do want to thank everybody that's taken the time and trouble to view, that's expended their energy to tune in to the Esoteric Science Roundtable. We are here every Thursday, channel 11, 8 p.m. I want to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. Again, to remind you guys, we will not be here live next week, although there will be a live Beautiful Losers from 10 at 10 p.m. channel 16 next Thursday, so stay tuned for that, you guys. Again, appreciate you guys a lot for viewing. Take care, have a nice evening, awesome. See ya.